event. We're getting right into the nitty gritty. We want to really focus on what we're doing, what we plan on doing, and what we plan on helping you do if you're of the same inclination of seeing live streaming as being at least a complement to what one's doing and maybe an extension or even a redirection. With that said, chat's wide open. We depend on chat. So happy if you're here. And if you share who you are, where you're from, it'll give us all an opportunity to possibly connect with you later if there's alignment. So don't be shy. With that, I want to welcome back Kelly and Harvey. Kelly has such an awesome show in the Awesome Journey with Christy Howard. I can't say enough about Harvey and his franchise show. And if you really want to learn about strategy, watch Kelly's show, watch Harvey's show, watch this show, and you'll see how it's done. And as an audience how you feel being part of it. And what you could do is create the same program for yourself and create your own community, which is so much better than being a lone wolf here. With that, Kelly, why don't you say hello, get everybody up to date, and we'll kick it off.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Yes, this weekend flew by. I can't believe it's already Monday. Um, and yeah, so many great things are happening. And yeah, the Awesome Journey. Do tune in tomorrow. We're having an incredible woman on sharing her story of her son who was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. And it just shows that the resiliency of the human spirit and miracles that are among us. And in any event, yeah, there's something out there for everyone, whether it's the Awesome Journey, the franchise show. I mean, there's so many to choose from. And every Monday, Leslie Flowers does put out her weekly list of shows and live streams and audios. So do check it out. It's my guide that I use because I get to see the new shows that are added too. And she also started highlighting nonprofits and communities in there. And just to go a little bit on community, what is so powerful, not just about live streaming and audios, it is about community. Because, and we've said this so many times on this show, but it applies to all of them. I even heard, I was listening to Leslie's show right before we came on, Mind Over Matter Monday, I believe is the proper name of it. And Jason Gerardo was on. But community, when we feel supported, we feel safe. And when we feel safe and supported, we're more apt to do things that we likely would not have done before. Because we feel safe and supported. And we take risk because we're not as afraid to fall. When we're by ourselves, that's when we get in our head and then start questioning everything that we do, as opposed to having someone, whether it's a collaboration group, the community, just saying, cheerleading for you. Yeah, I want you to do great. Like the three of us have our own shows, for lack of a better, way to say it. But we're not in competition with each other. We support each other. All of the shows that have come off of here, it's the same way. We just support each other. It's not a competition. And that's the beauty of live stream, is finding your people, whatever it is, in your business. If it's just something that you're passionate about, your why. I just started something this weekend. It was an inaugural event with Jason Wilson, who also was a guest on your show, Don, and that's how I met him. Because everyone on LinkedIn, I swear, is 6 degrees of separation from Don Cohen. And he started a mental health expo monthly called Freedom Fight Expo. It's the second weekend of every month, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for 2 hours. And I'll be sharing that for next month. But we had the inaugural event this weekend. It was incredible. I mean, incredible. Didn't know what to expect. But I yesterday in our wrap up of the weekend, I just honestly was like, I'm a better human just after being around these other people that share their stories, which is the same with this show. As many people as we've had the opportunity to meet and truly get to know, people on a different level when you do a live stream or an audio, as opposed to just doing some message in your inbox with connection. So that's my start for this Monday. And I'll toss it over to you, Harvey.
Hello. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Lovely to be here again. Yeah, I think lots of things that you said have resonated with me there. I think particularly the community aspect of it. But I thought it would be quite a good thing to do to just sort of go back to the start in terms of a LinkedIn strategy. Because, this is the LinkedIn strategy event, and we're all at different points, and I think most people don't have a LinkedIn strategy. And I think the first thing to look at when you're on LinkedIn and you're thinking about a strategy is what do you want to try and achieve here on LinkedIn? And it's normally engagement of some sort. Yes, there are people that want to sell their wares, I suppose. But what people have got to realize with LinkedIn is a place to grow a community, and LinkedIn is a place to connect, to enable you to grow relationships, to enable you to be able to do business with people who have got to know you and people who want to do business with you. And what I think sometimes people struggle with on LinkedIn is how to make that transition from putting some posts out or commenting to being able to get to know someone well enough to do some business with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not an easy thing if you're uninitiated to understand how to grow a community, and for people to get to know you, and for you to be able to make that friend before you make that sale. Don's expression there. So I think, and I'll say it every week, but a LinkedIn Live is absolutely the most powerful way to do it. And if I could start again, it would be much more simple, because first of all, you decide what it is, what community you're trying to engage with, grow your connections within that community, start connecting, and get a LinkedIn Live show. Because I've truly seen with the power of having this show and Kelly's show and the franchise show as to how that can connect you with an audience.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing my show for under 5 months, and it's really connected people to me within my industry so much quicker than anything else, unless I'd met with them face to face several times. I've genuinely got to know people, and I've then since met those people in real life at exhibitions and so forth, and they've got to know me via the medium of the show. So I think if anyone's looking at their LinkedIn strategy, LinkedIn Live has got to be a part of it. And through the course that Don's offering there, flying across the bottom, it's a great way to understand how to connect with a community. So I think that's where I'm going to start today.
You make so many beautiful points, Kelly and Harvey, because I think at a certain point you realize you have an open door and access to anything and anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're into hunting, there's hunting people, there's fishing people, there's people who draw, and it's finding who you are first, and then building the community for yourself, but also you for the community. And I think what this show has done, it's changed what I can do and who I am. So now I could do things I never thought of doing before because they weren't in front of me, or I was involved in something that was just too involving to make a significant switch. But this, you can do it gradually. And not to be a marketer, but I did see a Gary V tape or video, and what he said out of it, which struck me. And he's got one that just came out just a little while ago, and he says the only two things you should focus on is live stream LinkedIn and newsletters, right? And that was his thing. But he said LinkedIn is a vehicle for marketing and branding. The
Mhm.
people who sell don't know how to market and brand.
That's right.
So what I see is what we've experienced, and collectively we've been in conversations for a year just about what we're doing. We got a collaboration group with 4 people: Carl Dakin, Dave Snell, Con, and Beverly. And through that, we've been exponentially growing and reaching. And what we're looking for is joining forces, me, Harvey, and Kelly, to introduce you to this in any way that's the most comfortable, affordable way you can get a taste, and allow yourself to trust yourself to see the difference. And I think, it's going from a scooter to a Ferrari, and there's no comparison. And, everybody here is here. Everybody here is on LinkedIn. Everybody on LinkedIn who's here is doing something. So you're not selling anybody on the platform. You're not selling anybody on the effort. It's really, how do you get your best life out of this and create a better life for the people around you? So anyways, here's Carl. Carl has been unbelievable.
Yes.
He's a testimonial to coming on just in a few months, launching his show faster than anybody else has launched their show,
Yes.
building a newsletter and sticking with it every day. And I think what it exemplifies, if you want this to work, you got to work it. You got to work it every day. You got to work it every person, and you got to work until you get good enough that it becomes more play. But also, to Harvey's point, having a plan, having a strategy. How are you going to get there? And do you even know where you're going and why you're going there? And I think that's why shows like ours, collaboration groups, trainings, classes, close, mentoring, you should avail yourself of that, especially. And I think what Kelly, uh, Harvey, myself, Leslie, Beverly have proven, we're worth your trust. We've hoped to have earned your trust over time because of our decision to bring you along. The journey's a lot better when you got more people on it. Now, here's a wonderful person. It's Omar. Omar has been so generous and kind to everybody, getting people on his show, really being of service, helping kids out. You see the best of people, and I think that's what takes the salesy away, is you bring it into friendly, and then if you're lucky, you can bring it into family, right? Because after a while, everybody's taking care of each other because it's what people want to do most of the time. But they also know someone, maybe people standing with them. That makes going forward so much easier. So Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, so many great things in there. And I think, to go to Carl is the example, because I think this is a great example. And yeah, Gary Vee, I think I said this on the show a few weeks back, that I was like, when Gary Vee starts posting that you need to do live streaming and we're so ahead of Gary Vee, it's like, we're doing something right. And but in any event, Carl, great example about his newsletter. This is why data and feedback matters, people, and pay attention. Carl was doing a newsletter and talking about topics in a way that he thought his audience wanted to read. But then when he posted something different, he noticed how he got such a greater response from it. It was like, I had no idea that's, and so he adjusted. And we say that a lot about being adaptable and flexible, because all of us, and I can say this as a career marketer, I have sat in global boardrooms where we have whiteboarded to death a client experience with the different levels of users and what it's going to look like. And I'm talking massive, and I'm talking over months period, working through it, adding, subtracting, testing. But then when you launch, you all kind of go, oh God, how did we miss that? Something always comes up. So you can't, but you also can't wait till you think everything is perfect. And I can use an example of the launch of the live stream that was this weekend, we weren't 100% ready to do it, but it was like, but we're going to do it because we had enough in order to go. And you learn when you start doing it because it was the same exact thing. Like what Carl said, the audience feedback was such an inspiration to be like, oh my gosh, now I want to focus on this. So don't be worried. And I think that that's part of the fear with people is thinking like, well, I'm not really sure what to do. I don't have it all ready. I want to wait till I have it all figured out. You're never going to have it all figured out because it's never going to be perfect. And I say that as a marketing executive working in the financial services space. And this is why, like, I do love Carl's show because it's about capital markets, which I'm very interested in. But that did have to be near perfect to go to market because we had to have, 15 attorneys sign off on things, compliance, FINRA review, the whole nine. But there would still be things along the way that were like, ooh, hiccup, adjust, pivot, and make it better. Same with this. Like we're all human, and everybody is here to support. But the connection and the relationship that you build doing a live stream is so much, and I hate to say real, but it's so much more real than the garbage you get via the email strings, the automation through LinkedIn, which I'll continue to say, people, that's a strategy you need to revisit. If you're using the same strategy that everybody else is using with the automation through LinkedIn, every 3 days you're sending me a new one. Hey, just want to bump up to the top of your inbox. I know LinkedIn can get busy. I know that's not you. And if it is you, you need to revisit your content. But this speeds up the process because you really know people, and there's a way to, and it speeds the process. Even if you're not in the business to work together, what I have found is just the way to, I would refer to the three of us truthfully as super connectors. Because when I meet people or have conversation and something comes up that would never have come up during an email string, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I know somebody, I need to do an introduction with you guys. Or, hey, Harvey, I just had a conversation with this guy or saw someone send me a message. He's in the franchise space, but you should check him out. Those are things that help each other. And the beauty of that and the power of it is incredible because you never know who people know. And I just think from a strategic perspective, and then I'll use coaching as an example, there's so many corporate coaches, confidence coaches, life coaches, however you want to put it in. And my feeling is, God, if you want to differentiate yourself, why on earth aren't you doing a live stream? Like, I just think to me, that is a 100% no-brainer. It will get you seen and people will be able to feel who you are. Because what I read on your profile and I read in your content, even though I might find it good, I don't really know who you are because I'm interpreting it. My perception is making you. I mean, how many times have we met people in person after reading? We're like, man, they were nothing like what I expected. It's because it's based on our perception of how we categorize those things in our own mind. But when you see someone, hear them, watch them interact, it's a totally different thing. So that's sort of my thing right now. I still don't, it's only February, you've got plenty of time. It's not like you had to start at the beginning of the year. It's like going to the gym. Just because you didn't start going January 1 doesn't mean you can't start today. And yeah, so those are my thoughts right now, Harvey.
Yeah, Harvey, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think so. I think you made some really interesting points. I think one thing about somebody's profile as a good example, whenever I have a Zoom call with somebody, I'll ask them to tell me about themselves, whether this is a prospective franchisee or whether this is somebody that that I'm planning to meet up with or looking to do something with. And sometimes someone will ask me, oh, well, haven't you read my LinkedIn profile? And I say, well, yes, of course. I said, but it's always better to hear the story from that person because it's It's genuine, it's authentic. They tell you about them. And I think it's the same with posts to a degree. People can put out well thought out posts, or perhaps AI generated, whatever they might be, but you can only, like you said, someone can be completely different from perhaps what their profile suggests or what their posts are suggesting. Whereas now, I think this word is probably overused, authenticity, but
Mhm.
when you do a LinkedIn Live, you can't hide who you are. You're going to be who you are in the end, and the more you do it, and if you've got a show that goes out once a week, even once a month, and people listen to it, whoever you are is who you are, and that will come across. And especially if you have something that's conversational in its style, not particularly overproduced, because not like a podcast where it's edited. You've got a LinkedIn Live, people see how you react to things, and that's where they get to know who you are. So I think it's a really powerful thing. Again, for me, going back to a strategy, if I was to do it from the beginning, I would spend time first growing my network in the right way. Whatever, that space that I was in, wherever I was trying to get to, my first job would be to connect and to be a super connector. And there's some really simple and easy ways to accelerate that process. If you look for an event that's in your space, and whether that's mental health or finance or marketing or franchising, somebody's going to be doing something. It's very unlikely that nobody's going to be doing anything yet. So somebody's going to be doing something. And what you will find, let's take an event as an example, and let's say you're in the funding space and you find a funding event, you register to attend that event, and you will receive a list of maybe 200 or 300 people who've registered to attend it. Now, amongst those, there are probably going to be 50% who are within that space, really engaged, clearly engaged enough to attend an event. And that's where you start building your own community. You've got a list of people that are engaged. Some of the groups out there, you might be able to find some engaged people, although groups and in a way newsletters, the engagement you sometimes get with those is not as obvious or direct as a LinkedIn Live. Especially groups, I think. You can have a group. I mean, I know someone who's got a group with 230,000 members in it, but when a post comes out on the group, it doesn't get the engagement, and that's hundreds of thousands of people seeing it. So in terms of, if you can build a community that is really, really spot on in terms of receiving the message that you want to deliver, and then rather than using something like a group or a long post, I mean, you can use them all, but if you use a LinkedIn Live to reach that community, it's a great way of doing it. So for me, the first part of a strategy is to build a community and to find that community. And there's some tricks definitely to speeding up that process of finding that right community. And then you can start to think about what message you want to give. And there's always a way to deliver that brand and that marketing message via a LinkedIn Live. It's just the best way you can do it. It also saves you lots of time, because if you do a LinkedIn Live, you've done it.
I'm sorry.
You've done it.
Yeah, for real. And I had another someone that does design work for me a lot of the times, and he and excuse me, another designer are going to start a LinkedIn Live, or a podcast is what they were originally going to start. And in his mind and her mind, they were like, this is what we think we want to talk about. But what if that's not what the audience wants to hear? I'm like, well, if you haven't done it yet, why aren't you asking your audience? Do some polls. do some pre-things before you start putting it all together and ask them, hey, we're looking to launch a new LinkedIn Live series. What topics would you love to hear about? Ask your audience what they want to hear. That was one of the things that I did at live events for years. Is part of the follow-up survey would be, what did you think of the speakers? What was your best takeaway? Yeah, rate the speakers, because we wanted feedback on the speakers, because our interpretation as a business sometimes can be a lot different than what the audience thinks. And then also, what would benefit you in the future? What topics do you want to hear? And that's how we would create our agendas. Like, why aren't you? And people love that when they know, hey, I asked them to do this and they made it happen. Then you're even more apt to be talked about to other people. Oh, love what they're doing. They do this. They're constantly evolving their agendas and their in topics. Your audience is where it's at, and it's like it's so easy if you've already honed into your audience in your group. Ask them what they want to hear. Like it really, and you don't have to have it long. Do it in advance. Do some polls. Ask. Reach out to people through email campaigns, even. Hey, we're looking to launch this new show. I mean, there's so many little facets that you can do, pre-launch, obviously, and then when you have something that's going to be launched, it's all these different layers of strategy, and we talk about this a lot too. I see a lot of people that are offering workshops and doing these other things, which is great. But when I look at some of them, it's just like, this isn't very deep. And what people want is something that feels like them. So when you're talking to people who have done it, that can say like, hey, if your strategy is to achieve this, this is what we have seen that works down this path. Because everybody is a little different. And that is just a true fact, because even if your business is looking to, and this is an example I know I've used a lot, but most people would be like, I want to increase revenues, which is a pretty basic thing to say, right? But the way to do that is different a lot of times, because it depends. Do you have a sales team? Do you have a distribution channel that is fully saturated? So depending on what avenues you have, there's all these little pieces that make a difference into raising revenue for your business based on your business. Which is why I hate the pitch slap. When people are trying to solve a problem they don't even know I have yet. It's so annoying. But having those conversations with people who understand and who have been there and be able to tell you, hey, this is what we would recommend for you to do. And then to exemplify the fact of it's hard work. It doesn't just, we don't just say, here's the tools. You've got to do things to make it happen like anything else. It takes work and implementation, which is why most people, fall on their face, is they try to do too much at one time, which is another thing we talk about, is consistency, is understanding how to roll out. What can you manage? And at what point can you add on more things, and understanding that. So I'll leave it there.
Well, here, you two have brought up so many just valid points and important points, and it's constant learning, it's constant improving. I'm getting more into repurposing now. I'm starting to focus on that. So the other day I discovered Opus and I used it.
Yes,
And
so
I gave it an hour show. And within 5 minutes, it gave me 10 clips, shorts, less than a minute. Now, what was so impressive about it is I realized every show, I'm going to get 10 clips of me.
Mm-hmm.
Why not make sure those 10 clips are good clips, right? That in a minute or less, everything I say can be repurposed at least 10 times. So you start to say, well, when I was telling you about the Super Bowl yesterday, it's going to have no value in a clip, right? Because it's about me more than what you want to learn. And once you become a servant in the best way possible, because I look at ourselves now as concierges, We're there to get somebody. In other words, I used to be in Vegas a lot, and they'd always have concierges, and they'd set up
Yes.
your call for your shows or your meals or whatever it is. When you got there, everything was set up, and you talked to them, and they did pretty good for themselves. So what I see this is the thing that's missing is not doing a live stream. Doing a live stream is so easy, and it's easy to say after you've done 600 of them, but it's something that it won't trip you up. What isn't easy is the strategy, is best practices, is here's and what I'm learning even from what Harvey and Kelly have just said is if I came in to LinkedIn today, I would come in with a direction, at least to start with. So I would say, hey, I'm going to just get into franchising, right? And then I would go right to who had the franchising events. What's funny about what we're doing is what I did with tagging. Because what happened is when you come here, you don't know anybody, no one knows you, and you don't know what you're doing. So you got 3 strikes against you. And you ask, so why am I here? And most of the time it's for the wrong reason. Like I'm going to catch a whale that's going to give me a lot of business, and they tripped upon me. Versus, just where I got into tagging is I went to people's posts who did a lot of tagging. And back then, LinkedIn rewarded you for it because it was a little more immature than it is now. So I said, well, if someone's tagging 100 people and they're pretty good people all around, they've done their homework. This is the 100 they chose out of their 40,000. Well, why not just tag those 100 or get to know those 100 or be one of the ones who get tagged? And it's like, if you want to join a community, find a community that's already joined, right? And learn from it. But also you'll start extracting people from it to build your core. And I think the other thing is we're now gatekeepers. And it's funny when I introduce somebody to Kelly or Harvey, I always introduce them with, hey, Kelly's got the Awesome Journey show or Harvey's the franchise show.
Mm-hmm.
I never introduce anybody like, well, here's what they do for a living. Here's what they used to do. Here's where they live. No one really, that's old. But when are you at the top of your game? And here's a question I'd like to ask everyone. Is we're here all the time. I'm here every day, you're here every week, and between the shows we do together and the shows we do with other people, we're really out there. How many people do we see outside of us? It's the same LinkedIn. I don't see Gary Vee doing these every day. You know why? They're far beyond it, right? We're just learning the trade. They're already in big arenas. Why would they put together 10 or 20 people? But it allows a vacuum to be filled. Because if there's anybody doing live streaming that's really knocking them dead, one of the 3 of us or one of the people that we know would tell us about them. Where are they? Right? And I think they're not there. Gary Vee, I particularly don't like his style, but I got to give the guy credit for his success.
I find him annoying. And I feel bad. I'm sorry. He's got great content.
But he's into shock.
Yes.
He's into getting people going. But what he said, and I love what people say when it confirms what we're saying and thinking, especially from him or Shanae Monet, is he said, raise your hand if you post every day on LinkedIn. And it was an audience to about 1,500 to 2,000 people. He counted them. There were 11 hands that went up.
Oh my gosh. That's surprising.
That's all. And he said, if you're sitting next to them, make sure you get to know them because they're going to be successful. Because every day, and they learn something. To take it one step back to the video thing. So what I did is I spent a lot of my Sunday going on, what would I do if I started YouTube tomorrow? Just like Harvey said. And there was this guy, and it's so worthwhile. They're 5-7 minute videos. And actually there are 4 or 5 people that had the same title. What would I do if I started YouTube today?
Yep.
There was this one guy that had a 7-step map, and he had little things, sticking things over him until he pulled them off. So the first step is, get your community. Second step, and it was just like we're saying. But when it came to everything, it was so simple once you understand all the steps. And once you understand most of what we've done covers the hardest 5 steps that you have to start with.
That's right.
Not just and between us, we've got 1,000 hours, or let's say 1,000 shows maybe. If you get 10 clips from 1,000 shows, and that's just you. If you want the guest to get 10 clips, that's another 10. But let's just say you get 10,000 shows, or no, 1,000 shows. At 10 clips, that's 10,000 shorts. If you decide to create playlists out of that, I mean, you'll dominate whatever it is, right? Because when I go to LinkedIn on YouTube, there's nobody there. 15, 20 people. The average age of a YouTube LinkedIn training video is 2 years or greater. I tend not to want to look at anything that's beyond a year, because it's probably not as relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really have to look at the dynamics of the marketplace, how big is it? Who plays in it? We're alone with 1 billion people who don't know us, and they'll never know us incrementally, like Harvey says. If I posted every day, what's the penetration? Very small. What's the market share? Very small. But if you do it through a network,
yeah,
you bring people into this, because one reason we're opening this up to people is to allow us to expand. And the only way we're going to expand is to backfill what we're doing. Once we learn it, you outsource or you insource and create that, and then it grows.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's network marketing at its best,
mm-hmm.
right? Because that's what we're doing, is we're networking to market, to get our message out. And I think it really then lends itself to someone having to think, what do I really want to do here? Not what have I been talking about, because a lot of people aren't doing anything, or talking about doing something together, and nothing ever happens. Mm-hmm. And if you're just spectators and you're happy that way, then don't keep talking about, I want to build or grow. But if you're builders and growers, I would reach out and say, let's have a conversation. I mean, we're talking about putting your toe in the water to get a show. Before that, it's like, just have a Zoom, ask questions. And if you don't want to do that, use this platform to ask questions on the side. But whatever it is, I think our message is, be proactive. You can dream again. Dreams can come true if you want to work hard enough at it and commit to it. And if you're not happy, that's a good reason to make a change. If you're comfortable and everything is smooth, and you'd rather do more, but it's not a big deal, then it probably isn't a big deal. So Harvey, a lot of stuff here. And I think once we get into strategy, it really does get into, what do we do? Why do we do it? And I think a lot of people don't have the why, let alone the what and the how. And I think that's why having consultations, having us be able to get together, because our success is going to be based on the success we can help others attain. Harvey, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think finding the why is really important, because a part of what you said there is doing consistency. Okay, and whatever you're going to do on LinkedIn has got to be consistent. I sometimes talk to people, and I still am in sales, and in sales we often have a CRM, and in other businesses, and it's a program that puts together all of the things that you might need to know, your customers and what they're doing and where they're going, right? And there's lots of different versions of this, but it's like anything. If you don't use it, and you don't use it consistently, and you don't use it well, it's a useless thing to have, and an irritant. Yeah. So you have to work at these things every day and be proactive. and have a strategy, and make sure that you set aside the time, or you do things that don't take too much time. Polls are a great example of this. If you want to perhaps find out about what an audience is wanting, to use some polls. They're short, they're simple, they're quick to do. It's a good way of doing it. I like what you were saying about repurposing as well.
Mhm.
And we're all developing and learning, perhaps to a degree, as to how the best ways of doing that repurposing is. But there are some fantastic things to do. And if you sat down and wrote an article from scratch, from a blank piece of paper or a blank screen, it would be very hard. You'd be thinking, what are people interested in? What do they want to hear? What should I write? And you'd spend a day, and you might come up with something that people are interested in and resonate with, or you might not. But if you take a LinkedIn Live transcript, and if you do it right, I mean, you were talking there, Kelly, about asking your audience what topics they might want to talk about. Right? If you've got a topic that your audience has said that they want to hear about, first of all, and that's come from the audience or the community that you've built, then if you have got an engaged audience that are asking the questions about that topic during the live, right, and you've got a great guest who's enthusiastic about the subject that really wants to answer those, you've got all the ingredients. You're facilitating all of that to happen, and you'll get a transcript at the end of that, right, which is going to be audience driven or community driven, and is already, you can then take that to create that article or that newsletter or that how-to guide or that top 10 list. But it's been created by an engaged community, rather than trying to do it from up here and trying to guess what that is. Especially if you make it like this show, like your show, and like the franchise show, it is audience driven. We stop to recognize the people there, and we see what they're saying. I mean, but when I do the franchise show, it's getting easier and easier to do, because each week there are more and more engaged people there that love the topic of franchising, and amazing guests, and they're asking such fantastic questions. All I'm doing is reading it, talking to the guests, they're giving their thoughts, and it's all happening automatically, and it's all of such a better quality than I could have ever dreamt about doing on my own. If it was just me coming up with a topic and a question and answering it on my own, it wouldn't be engaging at all.
Yeah, but I think that because of not going in thinking you knew how to do it, or not trying to prove a way to do it, right? Like, this is my show instead of this is their show. I'm just here to make for a better experience. I'm here to promote my guests. So in other words, when you step aside and you give credit to the audience, you give credit to the people you're with, you give credit to yourself in people's eyes, because that's what's admirable, not the smartest, not the fastest, but the person who's more cordial. And the other thing is, that's how I could do 7 days a week, because it just became, the show kind of takes care of itself. I just got to, be there to kind of moderate. But before we go too far, we talked about the audience. We might as well talk about the audience a little deeper. Carl is just unbelievable. We said that. And he's making us better, because Carl came up with a guest code, which then made me want to add my pieces, and I started using that. And then it made the group think. And then, everybody pushes each other in a different way, or gets assistance because of a challenge in a different way. So let me just finish, and we'll turn it over to Kelly. We talked about Omar. Linda, can't talk enough about, always showing up. I'm so happy to be on today. Missed on days, had foot foot surgery and got on, as Don talked about, wheels, but I only have a cane. But no, only going to use it to walk, not a prop. So I'll enjoy you talking to build community. And here's the thing. Your audience is important for what it can help the show and what the show can help the audience, which means repurposing now takes the content, right? And not the audience that helped make the content, but now makes it avails it to a bigger population. So you just figure the best content just doesn't get its value right now. It's the continued value. And to be honest, not that many people are going to listen to or watch an hour show, but they will watch a minute or 10 minutes and 10 slides that they could consume. And if you're number one here, once you get the content right, then it's projection. And here's the other thing. Technology was never here a couple of years ago. You couldn't just take a video and throw it into something and in 5 minutes get your pieces. But it'll also distribute to everyone. So all of a sudden, if you got Instagram or you got TikTok or whatever social media that you're focused on, you can have that. I mean, we had Tara. She's on TikTok like everywhere. She's on Facebook everywhere. It's the same stuff. So not only did you take an hour video and repurpose it into a different format, but part of what Shanae Monet was saying is from this one video, you can get your other videos. From this one video, you can get your audio, create a podcast that's already been done. From this, you can get a transcript of this. So you can take this and have 3 different forms come back to you from the same information. There's people who are taking or offering people, spend an hour with me on a programmed question and answer thing, right? So you go in and someone will say, well, this and this, and it's primarily instituted so they can get 2 months worth of content, right? They know the questions, they know the answers, they know what they're going to do with the answers, and you get that. Well, we got 1,000 hours. Some people do one show with a stranger and get a month, and they're still miles ahead of the people who aren't doing anything.
I was going to say, but sometimes people can get, and do that self-comparison that social media allows so many to do, right? As they can sit and go, well, I haven't done anything. You've got thousands of hours because you've done so many shows. But the point to exemplify what Dawn was saying, and I know we've talked about this to some degree on other shows as well, is even if you just did a half an hour, which I'm not going to lie, when I started the Awesome Journey, we thought we're going to do 30 minutes. Ain't no way it was happening in 30 minutes. It has always been an hour and sometimes more than an hour. But doing one show in an hour, if you have a guest or, just a coworker that you're going to talk about the services that you offer or talk about, however you have your agenda worked out of what you want to talk about. What Dawn is saying, you can take excerpts from that. So in there is software, you run it through, and Opus is one of them, where it will pull out 10 excerpts. From all of those excerpts, you can take the transcripts. You can take that content and turn those into social posts, all of those excerpts. So think about that for a second. Now, an hour can turn into 10 social media posts with a video clip, and can also be across all platforms. And I do say, every platform has a different, has a little bit of a different strategy in the sense of, as an example, someone who hadn't been on, I'm not a big Facebooker. I do it now more because of my live streaming than anything else. But it's a different platform, as is Instagram, because I've had clients who they have great Instagram stories and reels, and they try to put those on LinkedIn. Well, it's not the same audience. So you do have to adjust to the audience to a degree, but you also need to know, oh, hey, I'm just started a business Facebook page. Well, until you're established, whatever Facebook decides established is, you can't live stream on it. You have to be engaged for a while before it will allow you. Instagram, the same. There's rules that would allow you to live stream there. And yeah, and then you can separate the video from the audio, and you can go to Spotify, upload your audio for free, and then you can start pushing the audio out as a podcast without having to do all the podcast stuff. Which was one of the things why I got so into live streaming, was because podcasting has so many behind the scenes tech things that we needed to hire someone to do it. And we couldn't afford to hire anybody to do it because we're like, we just want to start this show. And I love podcasters, love what they do. I love some things that are, what am I called? Produced, because you have to do a lot of editing before they'll launch. Live, you're finished when it's over. And then, like you said, you can either take it. I take out excerpts all the time on mine, on the Awesome Journey, and use those. But there's so many facets, and I feel like sometimes for people that can seem so overwhelming, like, oh my God, that's way too much for me to do, which is why it's important, I think, to connect with people who do these things and understand and be like, hey, I want to work out a strategy that's doable for me. And one of the things that I've always said is, be sure before you add anything to your strategy that you can be consistent with it. As a newsletter, as an example, LinkedIn, if you only post once every, I don't know, few weeks, you might as well not post at all, because you're getting penalized more so for not doing it. So consistency is really another cornerstone of what is key and what you do, which is why it's important to have that strategy before you go, and feeling confident about it, because it's not as overwhelming as even hearing us talk about all these pieces. It's not overwhelming when you're working with people who understand it and can help walk you through it, and then put together something that works for you. So there, I'm off on that.
No, I think we're covering so much ground. I want to recognize Dean. I haven't seen Dean in a long time. So happy to see you. I do follow your post, and thank you for coming back. You know, when people come back, it shows they left with good, and they're still good. And we applaud everybody finding their right groups, their right orbit. You know, Ambambola, I'm as proud of her as I would be any family member. And she was so good when these were the first shows she ever saw. And then she saw an opportunity. And here's the thing, you know, I'll give you a quick, well, let me first recognize Dennis, because Dennis is just a great supporter for all of us and just a wonderful gentleman. Minerva's here, who's in Canada, has been on the show. So smart, so relevant. I would recommend everybody reach out to everybody they see on the sidebar that they align with, on Kelly's show, on Harvey's show. It's a harvest of wonderful connections, and we've done the legwork. We've done the qualifying. When they get to our show, we've kind of vetted them and made it safer for you. And honestly, if there's anybody we recommend or promote and there's an issue, let us know, because we want to know. So if we've been fooled or something, the sooner we find that out, the better. Dennis says, appreciate all you showing up and not out, keeping us learning more. Thank you. Well, it's people like you that keep us wanting to come back. Minerva says hello to all of us. And you know, what I'm finding is what I thought was great and tremendous, then you got another layer to it. Right, you know, in the early days, and you know, if everybody's eating lobster, like in the 1600s, 1700s, when America was getting its feet wet, people would look at lobsters and think they're big rodents or insects. Nobody would dare eat one of those things, you know. And now it became prized. So what really has been taken for granted, if you catch up with technology, with AI, with repurposing. And the other thing is, we learn together, because I wasn't doing events for a long time. There's a benefit to doing events, and there's a challenge. And then I decide, hey, I'll do events. And now I got really pretty good at events. And all of us are pretty good at that, understanding them. If we get really good at repurposing video and say, well, all you got to do is hit this button, and have a system going, and all of a sudden you're adding 10 shorts or something a day, and it takes you minutes, just like doing a poll, just like doing a newsletter, is all of us together can really refine the time it takes, the quality we get, and all of a sudden we're moving into other people's territory. I saw a video yesterday by Mr. Beast, and he's like the YouTuber. And he said, I guarantee you, knowing what I know, that was the key thing. I could start a brand new YouTube channel and not even tell anybody who I am. And I'll have 20 million subscribers in 90 days, guaranteed. And he's got videos that go over 100 million. And he had a whole thing on what I would do if I got started as a 15-minute video. And he's number one. Why wouldn't I want to hear that? And all of a sudden, I'm getting the number one authority, whether it's Gary Vee or Shanae. And then here's the difference where we come in is we are the shoehorn, right? We're personalizing everything. We're saying, hey, we'll give you everything we know. And not only that, keep you in the loop of everything we learn. So not only get you up, but keep you up to date, keep you relevant, giving you 2.0 versions all the time. And really, it's the medium that does it. It's the power of this. I wish it was us. We just discovered it and are starting to really refine it and engineer it, but more importantly, not take it for ourselves, but offer it to the masses, you know? And I think you can get, if LinkedIn sent out a message today to their billion people and say, do you know that by connecting with Don, Kelly, and Harvey, this would be available to you, and this is what it could do to you? I think we get 100, 1,000, 10,000 people who would want to know it. So the difference is LinkedIn's not going to do it for us. So we're going to have to do it for ourselves. And the best way to do it is get 100 people in the audience to have their shows. Instead of saying Carl did his show and Harvey did his, it's like Mary, Jim, Joe, and Fred just launched yesterday, right? And here's what you can do. So anyways, 57 minutes. Harvey, no, let's go to Kelly. Kelly, my words. This has been fantastic getting into these strategies because it just shows we got so much that we're learning, so much that we're doing that we can hardly compress it to an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And I know for people who are, beginners or maybe even a little above a beginner, a lot of what we talked about too can be like, oh my gosh, like we said, a little overwhelming. But it's not. That's why you need to reach out to people who have done it, understand it, and can help you along the way. And we say this all the time too. Feel free to reach out to us and ask us questions. That we're not doing this because we're trying to be private. We love helping people and want to see people succeed and using something new that can help benefit them. Because I will tell you, remember, whatever product or service you're selling, people buy you. They don't buy the product or service. And the best way for people to see you is to see you. So I think I'll end it right there.
That's perfect, Kelly. It always is, and no matter how many shows we have, I always learn something from every show we're together. And learning together is more fun, right? Because you got 3 times the chance of learning something that you would have on your own without them. And plus, there's something to enjoy in the ride, and I think everybody should have a good trip. How where they start, where they go, and where they finish, to want to do another trip like that. And that's the beauty. It only gets better because if someone says, wow, you overwhelm me with positive surprises. When's your next trip going to take place, right? Harvey.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of what you said. There was 3 things I was going to say, and I know we're drawing to an end now, but the first thing I was going to say about consistency, and we said that quite a lot today. And I know, and consistency doesn't have to be. I mean, every day is good, but it doesn't have to be every day.
That's right.
And I'm going to give an example of it. When even before I did my show, I would consistently post every Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
right, every week. Right. And it's a post I still do to help people find a new job. And I still do it every Sunday, exactly the same time for a year. And at the time where I'd been doing it maybe 3 months, when you looked at my analytics on LinkedIn in terms of impressions and so forth, it looked a bit like a heartbeat. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
So it would have a peak every Sunday, then it would go down, then it would peak again on a Tuesday, then it would go up on a Sunday. But it was consistent. It didn't take a lot of work to get it consistent. And I have to say that following that period of consistency, right, that's when LinkedIn reached out to me to contribute towards collaborative articles. So
Yeah, and here's a little additional takeaway to add on to that, because consistency is different on every platform because each platform does have a different cadence. So it doesn't apply across all. So there's a little side note takeaway is cadence is different from consistency depending on the platform.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the other thing that when you do an event as well on LinkedIn, you can look even more at the analytics. And this is what's interesting when you do an event. You can look at how many people are there and how many people drop off. And it's generally a sort of a curve that goes up and then it goes down. And, you can do things like experiment with how long it is. If you stopped at the point where it was at its peak, what happens there? But I think generally there's always going to be a curve.
Mm-hmm.
But if you did it for 2.5 hours,
Mm-hmm.
that would, I think, keep going down. There's only a certain amount of time that people can invest. But I think the key here is whatever you do, make it consistent, make it stick.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a best practice that I think I'm going to end with.
Yeah.
I think they're both great endings. One last thing Mr. B said, how to get really good at this is you do your first one and it'll be your worst one, guaranteed. But the second one, find something to improve over the first one. So watch the first one.
Mm-hmm.
He says after 100, if every new one you added something that you learned from an old one, he said, then call me at 101 and I could help you. But until you've done 100 on your own, because most people will never do 20 and stay with it.
Yeah.
Most people will never care to continue to work it to get better. That's the difference, is allowing you the time to get better with people who are already where you want to be. Don't take lessons from somebody who's where you're at, because that's not going to help you as much. So with that, hopefully the strategy event created a lot of opportunities and strategies. And I think just knowing the opportunity is out there. So if maybe you said, well, LinkedIn Live, but hey, if I could repurpose videos, create a podcast, I mean, we're talking about time and cost efficiencies when we talk about strategies. Getting off to, like Carl, fast start, keep running, keep adding. And, building is taking something and adding something to it as you go along. It's like a building. Put the first floor on when it's tight. You add the second layer, you add the third. A house, you put in a pool, you put in a tennis court. It's making it more beautiful, but also giving you the control you never had, the creative control, the networking opportunity. And it's so wonderful when people start searching you out, right? Because of what you said or did versus chasing. So with that, we're a little bit over, but a lot of value. Thank you so much. Tomorrow is Tuesday. And with Tuesday, we've got Beverly, Women's Empowerment event. We've got Dr. Deborah Dupree coming back with her. We've got Jason Gerardo coming back on Wednesday. A lot of great shows. Thursday, me, Kelly, and Harvey. And then Friday is the marquee event. That's when Khan gets his first appearance on the show. And he's actually, I married him or paired him with Todd DeWitt, who's another fabulous gentleman we all know and love. So a lot to look forward to. And like Kelly says, all three of us are available for reach out,
Yeah.
always help during the show, but even more importantly, after the show. So thank you all very much. Appreciate you so much. Take care.